Hi, welcome to this podcast. I'm Abigail Li and the founder of Cryptocurrencyteens.com. For this episode, I'm excited to interview Jillian, a journalist at CoinDesk and editor-in-chief and founder of Block Leaders. Jillian Godsil is an award-winning journalist, broadcaster, and author. She is also passionate about blockchain and an advocate for women in blockchain. Hi, Jillian. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here, truly.
Yeah, I'm delighted to have you here too. So, Jillian, I see that you are the journalist at CoinDesk and editor-in-chief and founder of Block Leaders. Can you tell us more about your companies and your roles?
Sure. I'm pretty much full-time writing these days. I have a background in marketing, PR, in fintech background. And then when I discovered blockchain about 4 years ago, I went all in to the journalistic side. And it's very exciting because I do write for some of the leading publications, like as a freelance. So for CoinDesk or Cointelegraph, and that's great because it gives me profile. But I also founded it back in 2018, blockleaders.io, as my own site, a new site. And I do a lot of long form interviews on that site. That's really, really exciting because I own it. So that's like I'm in charge of the content. And when you're a freelancer, you're always pitching to your editors, and I'm very nice editors, but I've got to pitch to them the whole time. On my site, I can write whatever I like about it. So that's a kind of a nice freedom to have. And what's been really good about having this role in blockchain and Bitcoin is it's a very new industry, as you'll be aware, and your listeners and watchers will be aware. It's very, very new. So that means that if you've got enthusiasm and passion, you can do a lot more than you could with an established industry, for example, like the pharma industry or something else. So I find that pre-lockdown, pre-COVID, I was traveling extensively, chairing and speaking at different conferences all over the world. Plus also I've interviewed some huge names in this business that I might not have got to if it wasn't such a new industry. So I've been interviewing people like Andreas Antonopoulos, Don Tapscott, Alex Mashensky, and then John McAfee, the late John McAfee. I interviewed him a couple of years ago as well. So it's been a great opportunity and a privilege to be a journalist and broadcaster in this space because you get to meet so many people. And again, because it's so new, I can get to the higher echelons, which I mightn't have been able to do if I was, say, in a more established industry. And it's exciting. There's a lot of good things happening here.
Yeah. So what inspired you to found Block Leaders? Where did that idea come from?
Okay, I'm going to give you as short a history as I possibly can. So I'm 56. I'm 30 plus years in fintech. My first job was with JP Morgan in London. And I sort of did technology there. And I moved all around the world. And I was working in fintech PR mostly, but doing a lot more writing, increasingly a lot more writing. And then about 14 years ago, whenever the crash happened, the 2008 crash, I was personally hit by it. I hit divorce and recession at the same time. It sounds like a funny sort of path into blockchain. But what happened was we had a big house. I was married, 2 children, big house, big mortgage. My ex went back to the UK and became bankrupt. He gave all the debt to myself and our 2 children. It was my divorce present. I was very unlucky in my divorce presents, getting all the debt. So I'm kind of there going, what just happened there? What just happened there? At the same time, people were being shamed for failing financially. My business started to collapse. Everything went dodgy. And as you probably are aware, this is history for you now as opposed to living through it, but the banks were bailed out. The banks were too big to fail, but the little people were left. And from that, as we know, Bitcoin was created from the blockchain technology by Satoshi Nakamoto in 2008. So when I went through all my own personal horrible financial failures and all different things were happening, I went, this is not right. So I became very activated. And especially, as I said, a lot of people, and men in particular, were taking their own lives because they'd failed financially. Ridiculous. Financial failure is not a sin. It just happens to be a painful thing that happens. So I'm ranting and raving. I'm on Huffington Post, New York Times, and BBC, and Al Jazeera, and you name it, Russia Today, all these things. I'm going, this is not fair. The banks should not be bailed out, and the little people should be bailed out. So I got very cross. And then I got a cash offer to someone to buy my house. The banks refused consent to sell it, and they preferred to repossess it, and they sold it for 1/10 of its value. It made no sense. It was crazy. But I'm totally activated by this stage. And I also discovered that as a bankrupt, I wasn't allowed to run for public office. Again, it was seen as shameful. So I changed the law. I brought the Irish government to the High Court all the way to the Supreme Court. And I said my constitutional rights were being infringed because I wasn't allowed to run for public office. And then I ran in the 2014 European parliamentary elections. And I got against the banks as a little person with only me. There was only me. There was no party. It was a little independent. Sure, it was great fun. And I got 11,500 votes, which made me very, very proud. Enough to make a difference, not to get elected. But even still, it it switched something in my brain, I think, right? And then a couple of years later, I met blockchain and I went, that's how I changed the world. I thought it was by politics. I thought it was by activation. I thought it was by all these things. I thought, no, I'm a journalist. I take my voice into this space. So it's kind of a long story. I do apologize. But it's trying to explain like why I'm passionate, because I'm going, this is so wrong. It's so unfair. Why are the little people being left behind? It's not right. And I got really, very angry for everybody. You know, we all need, I was speaking to somebody recently and they said, oh, 2022 is going to be my year. And I said, can't it be all our years? You know, this is a whole idea of like this sharing. So we're in this together. We're in a big world. Let's work together and make things better for everybody, not the 1% that owns like 80% of the wealth of the world. So that's my introduction. It's a long-winded way, but when I got here, I went, there are so many projects and people in this space who are making things better. And actually, the people who want to make the world a better place, it sounds very hippy-dippy, but it's not. People have genuine projects and they're tackling real problems, from financial inclusion to income equality, to access to education, to even more prosaic things like, you know, supply chain and provenance, and NFTs, of course. Such fun with them. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening, and it's a great space to be.
Yeah, and so has Block Leaders started any like initiatives to kind of like help people, or is it mostly just like posting like articles and stuff like that?
That's a very good question. Ooh, you've just seeded a thought. I should be doing something. At the moment, what I've been doing, I've been concentrating on using my voice to make this heard. So I'm going, what are my skill set? I'm a journalist and a broadcaster. So, and I'm also, because I've worked in fintech for so long, I'm used to translating incomprehensible tech into English. That's kind of what my job has been, telling stories about what's happening. So I've been doing that so far. And when I previously, pre-COVID, when I was at different conferences, I would be advocating for women in blockchain, why blockchain is important, how it can change the world. But you've just seeded a thought. So maybe that's not enough. Maybe I need to do something else. Maybe I need a little project. Yes, I'll come back to you on that one. Thank you very much for giving me some more work.
Yeah, if you ever do start anything, definitely let me know and we'll have you back on to talk about it.
Yes, I'm thinking about young people as well, do you know, because I love the fact that you're 16 and you're interested in this, because things like, when I was going to school, even when my kids, they're only a little bit older than you, were going to school, kids are not taught about financial independence, women in particular. And it's like, I know, because, well, I'm self-employed most of my life, and I find it very difficult to ask for money. And it's a women thing. Women are brought up, it's somehow seen as very crass to say, oh, my fees are, or my daily rate is, or whatever it is. It's harder for women, I think, because we're brought up not to be that, these are my rates, full stop, this is what I'm worth, you know? So maybe, yeah, I like the idea of doing something with young people, especially young women. I really like that idea, to be financially independent. Because also, here's the other thing too as well, it's terrible. I'm divorced, and the divorce rate is huge. So that old idea of families growing up, and women traditionally would stay home to raise a family, which is kind of, you know, women have babies, so it's more likely to happen, right? I'm not being anti-feminist by saying that. But if you live in a world where like half the couples split up, so the woman who's taken time out to raise children, she's dropped out of her career, maybe she hasn't kept up with the training, how does then she look after herself if the marriage breaks up? And 50% of marriages break up. What happens then? So it's even more important that young women are taught to be independent and to be financially savvy, you know, about learning money. Yes. Yeah. I think you just got, that is my new that's my new project.
Yeah, no, financial literacy is definitely really important. I'm really lucky because like my school, I'm taking economics, and we have like a lot of different clubs to, like, if anyone's interested in like finance. But I know a lot of other people in like the country, like the United States, they don't really have access to that. So like my website definitely does have a little bit of information, but we're still working on it, obviously.
No, it's a great idea. And it's not because, like, for example, when I was in school, I loved English. I love reading and writing. That's my thing. I just adore it. And I loved history too as well. So I probably wouldn't have voluntarily signed up for a finance club. Because even though I'm working in fintech all my life now, when I was younger, I had no interest in it. I would have joined a book club, so I often think maybe it needs to be like, you know, you have to do it. So it's compulsory, and not like in a mean way, but just so that people, you know, understand the basics of how to access money and how to use cryptocurrencies, for example. Wouldn't that be a great class to have as compulsory for, you know, sixth year kids or first year kids, you know, young kids?
Yeah. So one of my next questions was like, what was your career journey like to get into the crypto blockchain industry? But I think you kind of covered that.
I do. My long rambling answer, sorry.
So like, why did you decide to like get into this industry as like a journalist? And like, how did you kind of like navigate the very techie, like the very techie aspects of like blockchain and like crypto?
Okay, well, there's a couple of things. Just interesting. I'm listening to This American Life again, the podcast, and they have, rather than ads, because it's on a local radio station. So rather than having ads, they have a piece from the editor of the New York Times saying that she's so proud to have all these journalists working with her. And she said some journalists knew they wanted to be a journalist from a very small age, and other people were in the army, were in medical, were doctors, and then took their expertise and brought it in. So there's no one way into cryptocurrencies and blockchain. There's many ways in. I'm trying to say, being a journalist, I've always wanted to be a journalist. My life kind of put me into the marketing a bit more. I didn't enjoy so much. I just love the writing. So it's for anybody to get into this space. Whatever it is you want to do, go and do it, but try and do it either with startups or companies, because there's a lot of innovation in this space. So it's quite exciting. It's very fast moving, and it's not, sedentary at all. Did I answer your question? I just suddenly realized I've been waffling. I'm blaming
No,
COVID
no,
now.
this is great. Do you find that it's been like kind of like difficult to understand like some of the aspects of like crypto without like a background in?
Oh, I beg your pardon. That's the bit I didn't answer. No, you're 100% right. It is very techy, right? Now, there's two things happening. One is it is in of itself. It's emerging tech. So it is very, very, there's a lot of very bright people here doing a lot of interesting things, and they're not always that easy to understand, especially if you're not techie. However, it will get easier because, for example, to use cryptocurrencies, it's getting increasingly easier. There's better wallets. The onboarding is much easier. Being able to use exchanges are better. Some exchanges use custodial wallets, so if you lose the keys, you can still get them back. There's a lot of things that need to happen that make it easier for the average person. Because if it's hard, people won't do it. And it's like, if you think about when the internet was first invented, it wasn't any good until Netscape came along, and then Chrome and Google and all the other ones came along. But if it's not easy to use, no one's going to use it. Like websites, before they existed, it was so hard to use the interweb or the internet, whatever. It wasn't an easy thing to use. Whereas now we use it for everything. So it is very techy because it's very new. It's emerging tech, and that's very exciting. If you're a techie, happy days, you're going to love it. And if you're not so techie, don't worry, because you just need to understand the bits that you need to worry about. Do you know what I mean? It's like when you drive a car, do you understand how the engine works? Maybe not. How to change a wheel? Maybe not. I mean, it's always handy if you can, but you can still drive a car. You can be a perfectly good motorist without having to understand the bits and pieces that make up the car. So yeah, so I say don't worry if it sounds techie. Just find out what you're interested in and go out and go and do that piece.
Yeah, so do you have any advice for teens who are looking to like learn more about crypto, like based on like your own past experience of like how you like learned about how like everything worked?
Well, I came to it quite late. As I say, it was only 4 years ago that I suddenly went, oh my God, what is this thing? And what I did, and I was lucky because we didn't have a lockdown, I went to a lot of meetups. And that was interesting because people were all asking the same questions. Now I'm like a veteran at this stage. I'm going, oh, but at the start you go, what is this thing? How does it work? What does it mean? What is money? Then you learn all these things that you had no idea about. So going to meetups, and also, well, I was very lucky because I'm a journalist. I started working for another friend of mine, Simon Cocking. He does Irish Tech News, but he was also editing CryptoCoin News, I think, or CryptoCoin, something, I can't remember the name of the publication. So he said, come on, write for me here. So he had me analyzing white papers. Now, I hadn't a clue what I was analyzing, but it was very much a learning on the job, because what does this make? What is tokenomics? What is, what, oh my God, what is this? It was really quite difficult, but to analyze a white paper is quite handy because although it's actually very boring, not fun if it's a boring project, but you're not talking to anybody, you're not making mistakes, you're just doing, and then he would look it over, make sure it made sense. I hadn't got anything very wrong. So we'll tell you one funny story. I was doing an interview with an Italian company, and they were doing experiences on a blockchain. So you would buy all these experiences for different things, and they had a token, a native token, which you used to buy these experiences. And at the very end, he had a very strong accent, and I had the PR girl was on the same call as me. It was only an audio call, but he had a very strong accent. It was hard to understand him. And at the very end, I said, if you were to choose an experience, what would you choose? And I thought he said he'd like to go to a concert with Metallica. And I'm going to myself, I asked him, I repeated it twice, with Metallica. And I'm thinking, is Metallica still going? It's a kind of a rock band, whatever. I don't know if they're still going or not. And then I realized afterwards, the PR girl rang me after and said, you do realize he wanted to spend an evening with Vitalik Buterin. the founder of Ethereum. I went, oh. I was convinced it was Metallica, not Vitalik Buterin. It was just the funniest thing ever. So my starter job was easy, just analyzing the white papers. So they could be corrected, the mistakes could be corrected before I made some silly boo-boos.
Yeah. So our target audience are teens around the world, as you already know, who are interested in crypto or blockchain. So what advice would you give them about entering this industry in the future as a career?
Well, sign up for your podcast for start. And also, I think what you're doing, because I work with the Blockchain Academy, which is a great organization that is teaching in different universities, right? And through them, I've discovered universities are quite slow to bring on new courses, as indeed are schools, because teachers always change. It's kind of tough. So the best advice I could give you was that, or give somebody your age, if you're in high school or about to enter university, is to join the local crypto club. And if one doesn't exist, set it up. And it's not that hard, because I used to be involved when I was a young person in the HIST, which is the Debating Society in Trinity College in Dublin, oldest debating society in the world. And we used to lose a start. We used to invite people in there and they would just come. I mean, there was no money. We didn't offer them any money. We were a student organization. So the same way, people love to be asked to come and give their opinion. So if you set up a club, invite people in, people who are running, have a look and see who's in your area and who's running businesses in New York or wherever you are. There'll be loads of crypto businesses all over the place, or Zoom them in. Say, can you come and give us a talk? And most founders and entrepreneurs, although they're very busy people, they love to give advice. And they would absolutely, the idea of a bunch of 16-year-olds taking time out to ask for their advice, you definitely get them. So that's what I would say. For a young person, either join a club, or if you haven't joined a club, set up your own and don't be scared. Go out and just, because I tell you, when 16-year-olds show initiative, everybody loves it. It's just, I'm so impressed with you. I'm like going, wow, what was I doing when I was 16? I'm surely wasn't doing what you were doing. It took me, I must be a very slow learner or a slow burner. So people love young people taking initiative. They really do. It's very heartwarming.
Yeah. I'm not like always like in work mode. I also like
obviously. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. So since you have experience with like universities who offer like blockchain courses, so for high school juniors and seniors who are deciding which colleges to apply to, do you recommend any particular colleges to study crypto at?
Well, two things. If you want to study crypto, that needs to be on the curriculum, and they are starting to come through. Go onto the Blockchain Academy's site and just see what universities they've paired up with, because they're doing some teaching there. But also, I think, to be honest, because it's such a fast-moving industry, choose the college because you like it, you can afford it, it's in your neighborhood, whatever it is, choose a college because your friends are going there, whatever. And then if you haven't already, set up a crypto club or a blockchain club or a Bitcoin club, whatever, and do that again, and use that as your means to, because you'll learn so much from people who are actually doing things at the moment, and whether it's at a marketing level, a financial level, a legal level, or a tech level. You can choose whichever way you want to go, but you'll learn. Why not learn from the horse's mouth? And the nice thing is, these people who are founders and builders in this space, they are incredibly busy. They're busier than any other sector I've ever seen in my entire life, but they're also very giving. It's a really, I find it's a very friendly environment. People like to teach other people, and they like to talk about what they're doing, obviously. And I tell you, if young people, if they set up the clubs and invite the oldies in, and actually a lot of people who are founders are young themselves anyway, they're only in their 20s or younger sometimes. So, but I think it's choose a university because you like the university. It's too soon to expect to get good, I imagine, and I could be totally wrong, but there's very few universities that will take on new courses. It takes a long time to change a curriculum because the staff don't know about it and they have to bring it in. So they mightn't be directly in the curriculum, but do it yourselves. Set up classes. And have you heard of Coder Dojo?
No, actually.
Oh, look that up afterwards. It was actually set up by an Irish student and also his, I think he's New Zealand entrepreneur and philanthropist, Bill Liao, you may have heard of. And basically they do after school at primary level, so kids under 12, kids, they do after school classes where they learn to do coding. And they call it Coder Dojo because the person who's there is not teaching them, it's leading them like a dojo in martial arts. But it's a great way to learn. So if there are Coder Dojo clubs all over the place. So not just for primary school, for secondary schools too as well. And they'll be teaching the languages of the blockchain. So it's Python or Rust or Substrate, whatever those languages that are being taught. Because the other thing too, as well, again, you don't have to be techie, but if you are techie, you're in the luck, because your jobs are at a premium and your salaries are at a premium if you have techie blockchain programming skills. You can charge, I don't know, half again on top of other people.
Yeah. There are definitely like a lot of like free coding like educational sites out there, like definitely like the ones from like Harvard, stuff like that. And I have that in like the resource section of our website, but I'll definitely add what you said to
The
the
Coder
website.
Dojo, it's a free thing. It's run, it's all by volunteers, but it's again, like, now I wouldn't be techie, although I write about techie. I don't want to code. I'm a terrible coder. I've done coding, rotten coder, but I like writing about it. I like writing about the ideas. So, but if you are techie, happy days, because it's such a booming space, you know. But if you're not techie, don't worry, you can still get in there. You can be a marketeer, a lawyer, a HR person, you know, I don't know, a builder of some kind. It doesn't have to be techie.
Yeah. There are like a ton of jobs in this industry for like everyone. So on the blockleaders.io website, I saw an article called "The World's Top Universities Look to Scale a Certified Blockchain Workforce" by Lisa Gibbons on September 17th, 2021. I think our listeners would be really interested in this article. So if you're like well acquainted with it, can you share any like key findings from this article?
Well, it's again going back to the thing that universities move slowly. That's one problem. And we know, and there's a reason for it, because the professors have to give the lectures. So it's very hard to upgrade your professors and the whole courses. But universities do recognize that it is increasingly a need to have blockchain because there's so much demand for it. And then getting certification is an issue because there's very few ways to be, you know, blockchain certified. I mean, obviously the University of Nicosia was one of the first ones with Andreas Antonopoulos. They offer that full-time course. I did a MOOC, you know, the massively open online courses. I did one of those with Andreas Antonopoulos in, well, obviously by Zoom. Quite a tough one, actually. It was quite techy. But yes, I mean, it's increasingly important for universities to have the accredited courses available for young people. Because how else, when you go look for a job, how can you tell people, oh, I've been trained in this, if you haven't got a cert of some kind? So it is very important, but I'm saying it's slow moving. That's the only problem. You know, it'll come, but it'll take maybe 10 years maybe for it to become universal. And you'll want to have your degree under your belt and out working in the big world by then, you know?
Yeah, I've definitely talked to like some professors for my podcast, and a lot of them have like said that it's very difficult to like integrate curriculum with blockchain. So there are
Yeah.
obviously like free resources out there that, you know, like YouTube and stuff like that, where you can definitely learn more if your college doesn't offer you a course.
Yeah, and I think also because it's a new industry, they'd be more open to, if you say I've got all these MOOCs, or I've done this, or I've done whatever. Everybody knows it's very new, so it's not like they're going, well, why haven't you got a degree from Harvard in it? Because Harvard doesn't offer that kind of qualification, you know. So don't be scared. It's a very friendly, fast-moving, frenetic industry, but very friendly. I think that's kind of nice to remember, that you can knock on doors and, you know, find opportunities in a lot of places.
Yeah. So do you have just any general advice for teens regarding the crypto or blockchain industries? Like any safety advice or really any words of wisdom that you would like to share?
Well, there is the one thing about, I get asked by people who aren't in the industry, say, oh, what should I buy? What should I buy? Should I buy Dogecoin or whatever? And I'm going, I'm not giving you any financial advice because I'm not a trader. I work in the industry, and yes, I earn coins, but I don't trade. I don't invest. It's not my thing, you know, and I know it's not my thing. So I would say to young people, don't feel pressurized to start. I mean, by all means, nothing wrong with opening a wallet and buying some Bitcoin or Litecoin or some, you know, Ethereum. Only spend that what you can afford to lose. Now, I think it's a fairly safe bet, but even still, I mean, in 2017, it was 20,000 Bitcoin, and then it went down to 3,000 for, you know, 2 years. And if you were going to rely on that to pay for your school books, you'd be a bit squished, you know. So it is, you know, if you want to invest, only invest that what you can afford to lose. But by all means, open a wallet, get some Bitcoin, get some Ethereum. You know, also, if you're young people, there's a lot of play to earn opportunities out there as well. If people are gamers, there's a gamer hash. They do, if you have a big laptop with your CPU and GPU cards on it, you can earn between $100 and $250 a month just by downloading the app, the Gamer Hash app. and it's on the background, doesn't cost any more electricity. And what's quite nice, they've also got a gamer hash marketplace, and you can use that to buy stuff like subscriptions to Netflix, Spotify, and increasingly they're also building a marketplace where you can actually buy stuff in Starbucks in different outlets. So if you're the gamers out there, there's all Alien Worlds as well, another place where you can earn Trillium by playing the game. So that's kind of fun. I think you can play games and earn. So people used to joke that gamers would, you'll end up living above your parents, in the garage above your parents' house, because you'll be good for nothing, the gamers. And now the gamers are laughing because they're making big money, either playing the games or because they're experts, they're getting jobs in the space because it's such a growth area. So gamers, well done.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's pretty unexpected, but at the same time, exciting for people who game, I guess.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm not a gamer, but I think it's wonderful you are a gamer. There's a whole new industry out there. We can, first of all, as a kid, you can play there and earn money, but secondly, you can also have a career, because gamers need to hire people. Gaming, there's so many gaming companies coming up. They need to hire people who understand gaming. It's so good. I mean, I couldn't go and work directly, how could I design a game? I've never played a game, So these are actually skills you learn as you go along. So, and they're useful in after school life.
So since we're almost out of time on this episode, do you just have any final thoughts or advice that you want to share?
Well, I am very impressed that you, Abby, at 16, are doing this podcast. That's very impressive. And I love it because it's like anything. It's like riding a bike or driving a car and those things. Do it early, learning to swim, horse riding, whatever. Do it early. It'll be easier. I think it's amazing. I'm not saying you have to have a career in blockchain and cryptocurrencies. Of course not. You want to be a nurse, or you want to be a doctor, you want to be a scientist. I don't know. There's loads of jobs out there. But I think two things. One, to be aware of it because it's so transformative. And secondly, it's also an alternative in terms of financial freedoms. So people I know are staking. They're at the moment, the world, there's zero interest rates. People are not earning any money on their savings. People who hold cryptocurrencies, they're staking them. And sometimes they're doing very, very, there's very secure staking things that only, says she, pay maybe 4% per annum, which is 4% per annum more than the banks will give you. Or you can earn money, and so it's not just, you're not just waiting for the price of the coin to go up, which may or may not happen, but if you're staking, you're earning interest on the coins that you hold too as well. And it's just good to be financially savvy. So I think it's amazing what you're doing, and I love the fact that young people are looking at it, because apart from anything else, you're going to change the world. That the world's in your hands. Whatever the ideas you come through with, that'll be important. So it'd be nice to be part of an industry that actually makes a difference. So well done.
Thank you. And that kind of brings up another question. So what's your view on the new and upcoming generations attitude towards crypto? Where do you see the future of crypto in maybe 10, 20 years?
Well, I love young people's, and I sound like I'm so ancient, but I love how young people think. I have two kids who are 27, 25 actually, and their thinking is so different from mine. It's like as if there's two generations have changed. And they're people, because they're concerned about the climate, they're concerned about, reuse. All their clothes, most of their clothes are vintage or secondhand. They recycle everything. All their makeups, they read labels. Young people read labels, and so they want to know what's in the food. My two are vegan and vegetarian. What's in the food? What's in the makeup? What's in this? Where did this come from? All these questions, and it's a really good place to begin from. Young people questioning, because before, I think I did not read labels before, and of course there's more on labels in intervening years because there's more laws. Maybe things have to be transparent, but it's amazing. So I think it's the young generation coming through, especially after the crash. Even though you probably don't remember it in terms of an event in your life, it's spawned a lot of new thinking. Like, why is it like this? Why? All these whys. Why are we doing things like that? Why do the banks have all the money? Why does Jeff Bezos make so much money, and the staff in the warehousing are barely, they're on supplements. They haven't got enough money to live. They haven't got a living wage. And I think these are very valid questions, because the world has changed, and I think the rest of us have been asleep at the wheel, I think, not realizing how things have changed. I think crypto is part of that change, because it's a transfer of value. It's a means of value. And if you don't need their money, if you can work with somebody else and exchange value with your neighbor using crypto, you're bypassing the whole system that has its vice-like grip on the world. Happy days.
Yeah, well, I know my generation's like really interested in like sustainability, like thrifting and like the environment. And I think definitely crypto could be one avenue of like achieving that. At the same time, like it's also good for like spreading the wealth and like generational like income inequality, stuff like that. So definitely
Yeah.
very exciting.
No, I take my hat off to you. Well done. It's great. The world is a lot safer place with people like you at the wheel, Abby. A lot safer.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, Jillian, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been such a pleasure and an educational experience, and I really appreciate your time, and I hope to have you back on maybe sometime in the future.
Well, I have to kickstart that project. It's all your fault. You give me more work, but you're right. What else? It's not enough just to be a journalist and spreading the word. I need to figure out something else active, and maybe it's working with young women. Maybe it's financial illiteracy. I don't know. There's something there, though. You got me thinking. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. I'm very excited to see like what you come up with.